Mr. Rajeev Peshawaria, a very warm welcome to Mohammed bin Rashid School of Government, and a very deep thanks to you for your engaging talk on overcoming senior leadership challenges this morning in our distinguished speaker series. Your speech was really thought-provoking, and it left us space for further discourse, particularly on those 8 steps that you suggested for senior leaders to overcome some of the challenges both in the public and private sector organizations, particularly the sense of purpose, communication, vision, proactive attitude, forgiveness, and so on. Were really a learning for many of us, and it was a very stimulating and inspirational talk. We will talk a little bit away from what you have talked this morning. I'll try to engage you in a discussion on some broad-based issues on leadership in the contemporary world. Again, we'll touch a little bit of public sector as a private sector at the same time. So my first question is to do with leadership as a concept or as a practice. Is it transferable? A pretext to that question is that in 2006, Harvard Business Review has published a wonderful article entitled "Are Leaders Portable?" And in that, they actually revealed that 17 out of 20 companies benefited tremendously by hiring their CEOs from one organization, and that is called the General Electric. Because at that point in time, GE was widely considered as a very successful company in empowering leaders, or training them. So much so that all these 17 companies out of 20 immediately benefited in the stock market in terms of their share values and so on. So that is about leadership transferability within corporations. My question is to do with whether leadership can be transferable in terms of values and skills between public organizations and business corporations.
Well, first of all, very good afternoon to you, and thank you for having me on the show. I am a believer that leadership is portable. Not only across sectors within the industry, but between industry and government, for-profit, not-for-profit, developmental, you name it. Because I believe that leadership is not so much about technical experiences and what you know about the subject. Leadership is more of an attitude. It's a way of life, and it's a choice. What do I mean by that? It's the choice of struggling hard to create a better future and not giving up in the face of resistance. So if that's what leadership is, all you have to do is get into the habit of closing your eyes and imagining a better future. And you can do it equally in an industry or company setting or in a government setting. So as long as you can do that, you're a leader.
Thank you so much. The second question is a different issue altogether. It's about state leadership and the role of state leadership in development, prosperity, progress. As you know, in the contemporary world, there have been some movements around the world, like in Scotland, in Catalonia in Spain, they're coming up another referendum in November. We have had a not so successful referendum in Scotland. Sudan has been split recently. But this nation, UAE, has demonstrated to the rest of the world back in 1971 that leaders can actually unify a nation rather than dividing them. That leadership role not only ended there with the creation of the union of 7 Emiratis living in one nation, in one country, but also stimulated growth both in economy and society and providing good social, economic and environmental policy frameworks to the nation, and particularly Dubai model that is very discussed in the literature of development worldwide now, has also been a result of all this leadership coming from the very top. My question is somewhat philosophical and conceptual. Do you see the need to frame this depth of leadership that I have just described in a UAE context, to develop it as a school of thought per se, because we have so many different forms and dimensions of leadership? So this is unique in a way, don't you believe so?
Well, first of all, I agree with you that what this country has been able to achieve through unification rather than division is highly commendable. No question, and the rest of the world has a lot to learn from it. I completely agree with that. Well, coming back to the question of whether the leadership should be uniting or leadership should be divisive, well, again, let's go back to what leadership is. Leadership is about creating a better future, which boils down to having a common purpose of what we want the future to be like, and a common set of values. So as long as a group of people, be it a country or a region, are united towards the creation of that better future, towards a common purpose, and united by a common set of values, and they see real, tangible value in doing that, they will remain united. I think trouble brews when there is a difference in values and a difference in purpose altogether. So usually leaders that think less about their net worth and think more about making their life worth living, there's a big difference. Thinking about my net worth versus making their life worth living, think in terms of the benefit of a larger populace. And those leaders tend to be uniting. Those leaders that think more about their own net worth before that of other people, they will be by rights divisive. So in my view, the second type is not even leadership at all. So you can't even call it leadership. So that's what I would say is, it's unity of purpose and unity of values that keeps a nation together. And leaders are only those people who can capitalize on that unity. If they're dividing the nation for their own personal gain, they're not leaders. They may be big bosses.
Thoughtful response on that question. The next one, I will turn our focus a little bit to some contemporary issues, particularly with regard to some good practices in leadership that's coming from Singapore, Malaysia recently, with regard to state leadership promoting innovation, change, creativity in government service deliveries, also promoting knowledge-based economy, promoting Islamic economy, for example, in Malaysia, which has been very successful. Some of these strategic priorities of this nation, of the United Arab Emirates, is also going along that direction. And UAE, as you know, has been enjoying lately a lot of good ranking in all different kinds of governance records, whether it is ease of doing business, or it is the World Competitiveness Index, or it is the Governance Index, or it is the CPI, the Corruption Performance Index, Perception Index, and so on. The question is, what kind of spatial leadership skills, again, this is somewhat transferable issue, whether leadership skills can be transferred across nations, not only between sectors. That what, for example, UAE can learn from the Malaysian experience in terms of promoting Islamic economy and finance, or knowledge-based economy in Singapore, and vice versa. They can also learn from the UAE's good practices that have happened in recent years.
I believe that if you look at what Singapore, Malaysia, UAE, or any leader, whether in the government sector or in the private sector, or any sector for that matter, is doing, they're all trying to do the same thing. Leadership is about making tomorrow better than it is today for the people around you. And therefore, you can decide that you want to create the Dubai miracle. That's a better tomorrow. You can decide that you want to make your country go up 10 notches on the corruption index and fair practice index, or whatever that better future might be. The underlying principle is the same. Somebody closes their eyes and imagines what the future should be like, and then works with full energy to make that happen. Now, in a democratic process, that's a little bit harder because you've got to take people along with you without using enough authority, much authority. And in a not so democratic process, it's a little bit easier. Either which way, you will face tremendous resistance. It's not to say that, if it's not a democracy, it makes life much easier. No, that's not true. We've seen that in many parts of the world where, there's lots of uprisings against what people don't believe to be right. So it's a lot of work. And behind all of that is the same thing, which is, how much can I imagine, and then how much can I engineer to make it happen?
Thank you so much. Again, I'm connecting this next conversation with your presentation this morning that you mentioned about 8 good principles or values that can help leaders to shift the position from being a lonely to a real successful leader.
From being a victim to a leader.
Or victim to a leader, as you put it that way. I'll pick one particular value that you mentioned, and that is communication. You portrayed Gandhi as a candid communicator, but that was then, a few decades back. And now we are living in an era of information technology, a lot of technological innovation and changes, smart society and social media, for example, the tools that basically dominate our life. What kind of communication skills leaders need? And this is again to do with leadership at the service delivery points, in the public sector or in the industry, so to say. Do they need to basically come out of the Gandhian time and serve the people, for example, in a better way when all these technologies are there?
So you see, my view, leadership communication is an often very misunderstood term. And there's a lot of training and a lot of emphasis on how leaders should communicate and how they should not communicate. I am actually a believer that, things haven't changed in 100 years. Now, why was Gandhi? Gandhi did not start out as a powerful communicator. He was very timid. He was, shy of facing audiences initially. But what made him a really strong communicator over time, as he became more and more convinced about his own purpose in life and his values, which he would never compromise no matter what, when those two things became really, really clear in his head and in his heart, he developed huge amount of strength. And then he started communicating from that authenticity, right? Because leaders, and that's the same today, leaders who are trying to create a better future get tested every day. And so over time, they hone their purpose and their values to a point that they believe in it from a very deep place in their heart. And then communication becomes very authentic because you're communicating from those values, from that purpose, and you don't need artificial means of personality makeovers and media training and this, that, and the other. Because your communication becomes authentic, that authenticity makes it powerful. That was the case with Gandhi. That is the case today. And today, the only other difference is, you mentioned social media. Well, let me say this. Leaders today are naked. Your reputation can be soiled within seconds with something going viral on social media. So all the more reason, today, you have to have authentic communication, which comes from genuine honesty of purpose and values. So what Gandhi did is even more important today because earlier you could fake it for some time. Today you can't fake it for 10 seconds because social media will expose you before you can say Jack Robinson.
Exactly. So what you're suggesting is that soft power, i.e. values, are more important. If your communication is driven by values, tools can also facilitate that, but that value thing is more important.
Actually, it's interesting that you call it soft power. That's the hard power in my view. Because, power given to you by your position and your title, in my opinion, is soft power. Because the moment you lose your title and your position, your power is gone. But power given to you by your values is permanent power. Nobody can take it away from you. So that, in fact, is the hard power. Okay. So it's just a point of view.
No, thank you very much. My last question is to do with the leadership trail by examples. Oftentimes we talk about transformational leadership, and we have good examples around the world. Question is how a transformational leaders can actually, both in the public and corporate sectors, leave behind a trajectory for their younger colleagues to follow, so that they leave behind good footprints for others to follow in order to create successive leadership.
So, in my opinion, a lot of leaders, famous leaders or successful leaders but not so famous, they try and fail in teaching people their brand of leadership. Okay, this is what made me successful, and hey, so-and-so, learn it from me. I'm here to teach you, right? I think that's the wrong approach because leadership is very personal, and what's right for you may not be right for me. It's not formulaic that, I can use the same formula that you applied and become a good leader in the next generation. That's not possible. The world changes way too fast for that. If there is one thing that good leaders can do to ensure even better leadership in the next generation and beyond is encourage their people to make a transition from what I call if only to what if. So a non-leader says, oh, if only the taxes were lower. If only the government was less corrupt. If only the roads were better, then I would be much more efficient. Whereas a real leader thinks, what if we could do this? What if we could try that? So the biggest gift that leaders can give to their followers is to teach them the gift of moving from if only to what if you've taken care of next generation leadership.
Imagine results of the same.
That's right. Yep. That's right. What if is nothing but imagination.
Thank you very much, Rajeev, for talking to us and a wonderful interaction after your long talk this morning. These have been very helpful for us to understand the critical aspects of leadership. MBRSG will continue to work together with your company, the Iclif Leadership and Governance Centre, that we have created with a good mission to make leaders for the challenging world that we're facing today. And we'll continue that relationship for the days to come. Now for the reflection part on what I have learned this morning from your talk and also from this short engagement is that technology is not really important. It can be a facilitating tool, but not really a central tool. What is important is attitude of leaders, the values, how he can create a platform for sharing values across his team. And then also is important, you mentioned that the Dubai miracle, when we discussed about the leadership style of this particular nation, you mentioned that Dubai miracle is a successful one, and that others have potential ingredients or recipe of success from this particular model. And capacity building is an important thing that you also mentioned as an ongoing way of upskilling the leaders and the subordinates at the same time. One thing was very interesting about what you mentioned about Gandhi, that he was basically a very timid type of personality, not really very vocal, but my issue of raising him as an example was he was also a very candid communicator. And this era is all about technologies, and that dominates our life. So this is something that we also need to remember. Finally, you mentioned about the difference between if only and what if. What if leads to results, visions, and inspiring everyone to, I'm sure, to go together. It has been a wonderful few minutes to talk to you. Mohammed bin Rashid School of Government has been also instrumental in promoting leadership as it is in UAE. It is a platform of sharing knowledge across the government and the industry and other civil society groups here. As you also saw this morning, there's a mix of people who came and engaged in your lecture, and also Professor Nabil's lecture. That was really an interesting one. And we'll continue to work together, as I said, with Iclif in the days to come. Thank you very much.
Look forward to it. Thank you very much.